Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily.
He's incredibly happy, grateful. He wants this time right now to spend with his family. They're incredibly relieved that this nightmare is finally over.
After days of deliberations, the jury comes to a decision in the Ohio murder trial of William Husel. But first, complete Johnny Depp and Amber Heard coverage.
I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice.
Johnny Depp is back on the stand. Plus,
you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother, in a sense.
How Depp says his childhood affected his relationship with Amber Heard. And
I believe that was about the lowest point in my life.
We are live in Fairfax, Virginia for a recap of Depp's testimony so far. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. Johnny Depp is back on the stand for day 2 of his testimony in the multi-million-dollar defamation suit against ex-wife Amber Heard. Law&Crime Network's Jesse Weber is live at the Fairfax County Courthouse. And Jesse, you were inside the courtroom for Depp's testimony, right?
That's right, Brian. Yeah, today was all about Depp reinforcing the notion that, like his father, who was abused by his mother, he was constantly abused by the woman he loved, Amber Heard. He kept taking that abuse, but would never return in physically fighting her. He would always try and find ways to escape, whether going to another room or actually booking another hotel room. Now, he alleged that Heard slapped him, threw things at him, and even punched him. And in fact, we and the jury all heard this incredible audio tapes where Amber Heard, in fact, acknowledges that she attacked Johnny Depp and complained about the fact that he does actually walk away. Now, he also said that she was very verbally abusive to him as well and would turn insecurities or facts that she would share with her against him, for instance, saying that he was a terrible father, something that really hit him home based on his upbringing. But in one of the most dramatic and frankly disturbing accounts, Depp said that Heard was responsible for severing his finger when she threw a bottle at him.
I was leaning like this in the chair, looking at her. First bottle went, then got the other bottle shot. Takes the second bottle, which is the larger one. I'm in this position again, and my hand is on the edge of the bar, like that, you know, leaning over, the fingers like that, and she threw the large bottle, and it made contact and shattered everywhere. And I honestly didn't feel the pain at first at all. I felt no pain whatsoever. What I felt was, I felt heat. I felt heat, and I felt as if something were dripping down my hand, you know. And then I looked down and realized that the tip of my finger had been severed, and I was looking directly at my bones.
And it gets a bit stranger because Depp says then he went into a panic state and actually took the blood to write on the walls. You really can't make this stuff up, Brian.
Not at all. Jesse, Depp gave an example of Heard faking an injury. What was that about, and how is that going to affect Heard when she eventually testifies?
Yeah, that was a notable moment. He had talked about how he actually engaged in a physical struggle with Amber Heard and kind of put her in a bear hug. And as a result, he said he briefly touched her, and she claims that he actually broke her nose and headbutted her. He says, I didn't do any such thing. And he said that she took a napkin, and there was what he, at first she claimed was blood on it. She threw it out. When she left the room, he looked at the Kleenex, and it was nail polish. So the idea that she would allegedly fake that attack helps his narrative that she also faked injuries later on to ultimately get that restraining order from the court. So that was a really pivotal piece of testimony from him.
Yeah, it really goes to her credibility. Now, I know at one point that the jury in the court actually heard audio recordings where Heard admits to throwing things at Depp when he tries to walk away. Is this the smoking gun in the case for Depp?
I mean, I think it is. It's really important because if she's acknowledging she attacks Johnny Depp and she's saying that he walks away, that kind of not only fuels his narrative, but makes him seem more credible. And it's going to be very interesting when she takes the stand to explain that away. And I should note that when those audio recordings were finished up, there were murmurs throughout the entire gallery. Everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be helpful for Heard's case. Now, Jesse, direct examination ended Wednesday afternoon with Depp flat out saying he never physically or sexually assaulted Heard and that he lost all but everything. What do you think the cross will focus on?
So that's a good point. And there's a lot they could pick upon, but I'm not sure they're going to focus on some more of the extemporaneous matters about his family or anything that I think they're going to really focus back on what we're here for. The Washington Post 2018 article, really focus on that, focus on what was exactly alleged in that article and how did it really affect your career. You know, Johnny Depp focused so much on these false allegations from Amber Heard, but from 2016, he really didn't focus maybe enough on the article itself and how it damaged him. So if I were them and trying to defend against a defamation claim from that article, I'd put all the focus on that article.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the cross-examination. But don't forget, there's a redirect where he might be able to get back on the stand with his attorneys, and maybe they'll solve some of those issues. But thank you as always, Jesse. I know we're going to get back to you in a few minutes as well. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, our Johnny Depp live coverage continues. We heard about the finger injury, but what contentious topic led to the explosive fight in Australia? That's still ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Welcome back. More now on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial out of Virginia. On Wednesday, jurors heard what happened when Depp injured his finger. He says it was a result of a fight about a post-nup agreement with Heard.
She kept saying, "I'm not even in your will. I'm not even in your will." I thought that was an odd thing to say. Especially since I don't think anybody had had time to change wills or anything of that nature. So those things just didn't, it felt wrong. And she could not let go of the fact that I was in on this post-nup agreement and that I was trying to trick her into essentially getting nothing if something were to happen. She was irate and she was possessed. And when I tried to remove myself as I normally would from a situation, and that is to say, you know, as she's hammering me with sort of brutal words, being called in kisser to lawyers or that didn't fight for her or stand up for her.
Joining us today is LA County Public Defender Philip Dube, co-host Terry Austin, and Jesse Weber live from the Depp Heard trial. Jesse, do you see as Depp was testifying, or do you think, sorry, as Depp was testifying, that he was on the offensive or defense in this suit?
That's a really good point. Remember, he is the plaintiff. He has filed a defamation lawsuit, but let's not forget he's also defending himself against a $100 million counterclaim from Amber Heard. Today felt more like defending himself against the counterclaim because the more that he can show that Amber Heard physically assaulted him, the more his claim, the more her claim that she says that he made up these allegations against her. Basically, she accuses him of operating a public smear campaign, calling her a liar and fabricating all these details. It makes her case weaker. And so I think that's really where the focus was today. Obviously, he was trying to defend himself and say that the claims she made about him being a wife beater were completely false. But it felt like to me, and maybe the jury, that it was more about defeating her counterclaim.
Yeah. Now, Terry, do arguments about not being in the will or prenups and postnups paint Heard in a negative light, especially since her counterclaim is double that of Depp's?
Absolutely. No question. Depp's testimony today painted her in a negative light. Look, she did not want to sign the prenup. She did not want to sign the postnup. She complained about not being in the will. It seems like the entire relationship was for money. She was very calculating, and she, as you mentioned, filed a counterclaim for twice the amount of money. She definitely filed for divorce right after he said he was going to file for divorce. Another sign that she is calculating. She recorded conversations secretly. I think the entire deposition, the entire testimony, everything that we heard from Depp today sounded like he is a cold, calculating individual.
Yeah, I'm not trying to speak badly on prenups, postnups, do as you do, but just from this, it seems a little odd. Philip, Heard gave maybe her first reaction to Depp's testimony because she's been pretty stoic the entire time. But we saw she cringed a bit about the postnup argument. How'd that come across to you?
Oh, are you kidding? I'm sure she was shocked that they even raised that, because now that is a motive for her to fly off the handle and show some of her violent acts of aggression. Up to that point in the marriage, despite it being dysfunctional and toxic, all of a sudden now you have a physical act of aggression where money is the root of that evil. So not only is she not getting a nickel, and not only is any of that property being converted to community property or to equitable distribution, he is leaving her and he wants out. She wants to have the last word. And I think she was waylaid by the evidence of that prenup.
Yeah, I mean, stoic during the arguments part, but a little bit of emotion when it's argument plus money. I'm wondering if the jury caught that. Jesse, as always, thank you as always for your stellar reporting from the scene. And we'll continue with more in this case when you come back. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, our Gavel to Gavel coverage continues in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard defamation lawsuit. Still ahead, we take a closer look at Depp's direct examination, how he says an abusive relationship with his mother affected his marriage to Heard. Welcome back. We continue our coverage of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard as the exes face off in a multi-million-dollar defamation suit. We're taking a closer look now at Depp's testimony as he compares his relationship with Amber Heard to his relationship with his mother. Ahead of Depp's testimony, jurors heard multiple witnesses describing an abusive relationship between Depp and his mother. Depp's sister testified when their mother was physically and verbally abusive towards Depp. He would run off and retreat. On Tuesday, Depp himself compared that alleged abuse to his relationship with Heard.
My personal experiences, which I gave to Miss Heard, those things were, those facts were used against me as weapons. It was not to help the relationship. It did not help the relationship. It wasn't meant to help the relationship. It was meant to feed her need for conflict. She has a need for conflict. She has a need for violence. It erupts out of nowhere, and what I learned, the only thing I learned to do with it is exactly what I did as a child. Retreat. Just take a step back, which I told her we need to remove ourselves from each other, even for an hour, a day, anything. Because this can't go on. No one can live like this, But why did I stay? I stayed, I suppose, because my father stayed. I suppose because I had been in that relationship with Vanessa, and that was lost, and I didn't want to fail.
Need for conflict, need for violence. Terry, Depp is connecting the dots between the abuse he suffered from Heard and what he saw with his parents and what he suffered from his mother. What do you think the jury is connecting when they hear this type of testimony?
They spent a great deal of time on direct testimony about Depp's childhood, maybe a little too much, but I think it was important. Depp was explaining his relationship with his abusive mother. For instance, his mother called him one-eye because he has one bad eye. Amber called him an idiot and a bad father, and his mother was physically hitting him. Amber threw objects at him. She admitted on that audio you heard that she was throwing pots and pans, and clearly she hit him, she punched him. So, you know, we heard how the father was stoic and he did not, you know, respond to the mother's abuse. Depp was trying to say he was doing the same thing. He was just being, you know, passive and running away from it, just like his father. So important testimony.
Yeah, I think like a lot of young boys, or even when they grow up, I'm just trying to be like my dad. I'm trying to do my best. Philip, what are the photographic evidence that we're seeing in this trial really showing us and telling us about who is the actual victim in this case?
Well, the one photo where the finger was severed is very telling because unless you believe the text message that Johnny Depp sent to his doctor saying that it was self-inflicted accidentally, then you have to believe that he was covering for Amber during one of their little arguments where she flew off the handle and threw that sharp object at him. That clearly was a sort of a mini act of mayhem. And by the way, that carries several years in prison in California for that. It's a very, very violent felony. That was clearly not a defensive wound, if you will, but it looks like it was a direct act of aggression.
Yeah, I mean, same thing in New York. What's that, disfigurement? I think it's a B felony. You can do quite a number of years in New York. So I think covering up makes sense if you don't want your wife to go to jail. Well, thank you both on the coverage of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. When we come back, Ohio versus William Husel. After weeks of testimony and days of deliberation, a shocking verdict is handed down. Still ahead, the fate of former Dr. William Husel. Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. Ohio former ICU doctor William Husel is a free man after a jury acquitted him of all murder charges Wednesday. This after weeks of testimony and about 33 hours of deliberations. The former ICU physician was facing 14 counts of murder. Prosecutors said from 2015 to 2018, Husel had ordered excessive amounts of fentanyl and other drugs to patients at Mount Carmel Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. The jury was clearly convinced by the defense team's arguments that the doctor was simply giving end-of-life comfort care and wasn't intentionally killing his patients. Throughout the weeks-long trial, jurors heard from Husel's co-workers, expert witnesses, and several family members of the alleged victims in the case. The jury entered into deliberations last week to determine if Husel would be convicted of murder, a lesser charge of attempt to murder, or be acquitted, and initially they were deadlocked. On Wednesday morning, Judge Michael Holbrook read the jury's decision on each of the 14 counts.
Relative to count one, we, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled and sworn, find the defendant not guilty as to count one of the indictment for murder and not guilty to any lesser offense. Signed by each and every juror. This is the 20th day of April, 2022. Count 14, we, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, find the defendant not guilty as to count 14 of the indictment for murder and not guilty of any lesser offenses. Signed by each and every juror. This is the 20th day of April, 2022. Juror Foreman, is this the verdict of the jury?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Shortly after court ended, Husel's defense attorney held a virtual press conference on the jury's decision.
He's incredibly happy, grateful. He wants this time right now to spend with his family. They're incredibly relieved that this nightmare is finally over. This verdict speaks to not only William, but all of those doctors and nurses out there who are attempting their best to give comfort care in a very difficult situation, and they don't need to be looking over their shoulders wondering if they're ever going to get charged with a crime. This was a scary trial for me and for all of us involved because we knew what was at stake, and that was the future of comfort care. The reality is William Husel was an innocent man, always has been and always will be.
Philip, from deadlock to not guilty on all 14 counts. Why do you think the jury came to this decision?
My hunch is there was just one or two lone holdouts, And I think that they were trying to conflate reasonable doubt with comfort care and malice aforethought, that there just simply was not enough evidence in the final analysis to show either an express or an implied intent to kill. Recognize that every hospital has an ICU, a CCU, a mortality rate, and a morgue in the basement, and to suggest that everybody's going to come out of a hospital alive is just simply, fanciful. So in the end, I think the jury and perhaps the one or two lone holdouts realized there truly was reasonable doubt as to his state of mind.
Yeah, I mean, it did take them 33 hours to get there, so there must have been something they were thinking about. Terry, do you think this trial could change the medical profession in Ohio, maybe implementing standards for comfort care and creating a law for assisted suicide?
Well, I do think Ohio could certainly make their standards a little bit clearer so that this doesn't happen again. But I do think that the verdict at the end of the day was the correct result. It took them a while to get there, but they very carefully looked at all of that evidence. And I think it was more than just that the prosecution didn't prove, beyond a reasonable doubt. I think they looked at the evidence. I think that they saw that the patients were near death, that there were consent from the families in each and every case, that the colleagues of Dr. Husel thought he was brilliant and compassionate. And I think at the end of the day, that won the case.
All right, quite a long case, but fully acquitted on all charges. Thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.